Let's move on to the next position, Brian. And that next position is wide receiver. And this is an interesting one because one of our criteria.
Grade.
Oh, yeah.
Start off with the grade.
See, I'm going to mess it up every time because I'd love to just get into the analysis and just go, right? My grade is a B+. My grade is a B+ for this group. And your grade is, sir?
Same.
Okay. Ooh, all right.
Yeah.
I had it as a B until you told me at the beginning of the show that it can't be about who you missed on. Okay.
Right. It's about evaluating for the class for what it is.
Correct. And so I bumped it up to a B+. Now, it's not the talent wise with the four of these guys, this is a talent. Like it's a talent, right?
Right. The B+ is because they did come short on numbers.
Exactly. And it's not because of who they missed on, it's the fact that they missed on numbers. And so that's why my grade is a B+. These guys are top end wide receivers, in my opinion. I mean, these guys are great. And again, we talked about this in our 22 evaluation grade show, is that Merriweather's a stud, but he can't be by himself. That's the problem. And so they didn't meet their numbers. And so because of that's a big part of the criteria, meet your numbers, it's a B+ for me. Again, not about talent, but it's about numbers. I love Colsey, Styles, Thomas, and Merriweather. I love them. I love all four of those guys, and I think they could all be really, really good. But the problem is a numbers issue. So that's why my grade's a B+.
Same here. I mean, look, what we said at the beginning is, did you meet your need? We're evaluating the impact, the talent of the group, or the fit, and then did you meet your needs? And when you just look at numbers, Notre Dame came up 2 players short.
Yeah,
and they're an 11 personnel as their base offense. That's a 3 receiver alignment. You're 2 guys short of having a 2 deep. You know, I mean that's a minus. That's the negative. If you take that away and you just look at what they did, this is a heck of an influx of talent. I mean, when Jaden Thomas is your number 4 guy, he's a 4-star player, right? I graded him as a 4-star. Everybody else graded him as a 4-star. He's a 4-star on the composite. The other 3 guys are all top 100 recruits. I mean, Tobias Merriweather I graded as a top 50 recruit. Deion Colsey I graded as a 4-star recruit. Same with Lorenzo Styles. And the thing about Lorenzo or Deion is I've said a bunch of times, Deion's got 5-star upside. I mean, Deion has a ton of talent. Lorenzo Styles has 4.5-star upside. I didn't quite get him to 5-star upside, but Tobias has 5-star upside. Deion Colsey has 5-star upside. Lorenzo has top 50 upside, and he was a top 100 recruit. And then Jaden Thomas is a 4-star player. So this is a really good group. I think they complement each other well. If I said this when I wrote this, the 2-year grades is if in a couple years your starting lineup is Deion Colsey in the boundary, Lorenzo Styles in the slot, Tobias Merriweather at X, and Jaden Thomas is part of rotation, you're gonna have a really good receiving group. I mean, that's a really good group of 4.
No doubt about it.
And so, yeah, you need to get some numbers, and we may do another grade here because Notre Dame is still recruiting some guys, and we'll get into that before we move on to tight ends. But this is a really talented group of 4. It's a talented group of 4 that brings a little bit of diversity to the table. Deion and Tobias are both 6'4", but they're not the same player. They're different players. Lorenzo's 6 foot, 6'1". He's a completely different kind of player. Jaden is sort of a jack of all trades, Joe Wilkins type, but a little better than what Joe was coming out of high school. And so to me, this is an outstanding group of 4. It's just the only negative is you came 2 guys. If they would have had just 1 guy short, I'd have probably given him an A-.
Sure.
You came up 2 guys short.
That's a lot.
And they didn't even have to be like great players,
right,
for the grade to go up. They just had to be guys that can play.
Yep.
And you do that, then I mean, this group has a chance to be special. And like we had a comment from Kenny Moore. Kenny said, I think Colsey ends up being the best player in the 2-year window. I think you could argue, Kenny, that you could argue that I don't think Deion was the best player. I have Deion ranked 3rd of this group of 4 coming out of high school. He was very raw. You could argue, however, that his upside is as high or higher than anybody in this group. The other thing people got to remember about Deion was about a year younger than most people in his class.
Good point. Yeah.
So Deion and Tobias aren't that far away in age. That's the other thing that factors in to Deion's upside. But from an upside standpoint, I mean, this is a special group. From just a raw talent standpoint, this is a special group. They just came up short in numbers.
Exactly.
And that's really what it boils down to.
That's what dings it for me. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. This is there was one other question that I wanted to get to. This is a good question from Jeff Salmon. Why do you have Merriweather higher than CJ Williams? Now, as Jeff knows and everybody knows, I had Tobias as the number one player in the class from the moment he committed, the offensive class from the moment he committed. That never changed. I like CJ Williams. I like CJ a lot. The thing that I said was Tobias is sort of a guy that's a big play guy. He's a guy that can do a little bit of everything. He brings more explosiveness to the table. He has a higher ceiling, in my opinion. There's a lot of room for improvement and growth still left in Tobias's game. Mm-hmm. I think his catch radius is exceptional. The thing I said about CJ is what I loved about CJ is CJ was a volume pass catcher. CJ wasn't if they both had 120 yards, CJ would do it on like 9 catches and Tobias would do it on like 4 or 5.
Right.
CJ, it's just he's a different kind of player. CJ's that guy that can play outside, can play in the slot. He's a good route runner. He's got great hands. He can do all this.
He was ticketed for the slot at Notre Dame, most likely.
Yeah, I didn't love that, but I understood it when they explained it to me. It made sense. I was like, okay, cool, I get that. And so I like CJ a lot. CJ was a top 100 player. He was not an elite athlete. He was not a super explosive guy. He's just a real savvy, know how to get open kind of guy. And that's why, to me, Tobias was a better player. Tobias is more of a game wrecker. CJ's just that guy just goes out and makes plays, me. And it's never going to be sexy, right? Like you look at it and you're like, I don't remember CJ making a lot of big plays. Tobias made 2 huge plays. And then you look down at the spread, you're like, okay, CJ had like 9 catches for 112 yards. And, 5 of those went for first downs and, were on third down or something, you know what I mean? And he's just that kind of player. That's what I loved about CJ. But he was never the guy that was just, boy, that's a game wrecker right there. Tobias is potentially that kind of player. And Jeff, that's, to me, that's what it comes down to. You know what I mean? So
and I want to add this part too, because this is a 2-year grade, right? And the most recent year is the year that they missed on numbers. So if let's say they get 2 or 3 high-end guys next year, you're still sitting at 4 for 2 years. And the grade's not going to be much different.
Right.
So unless they go out and they get 5, right, now, which is possible.
Right.
But I mean, I don't know that
it's going to be hard to do. You can't keep all those guys.
Right. Exactly.
You always want to try to avoid the imbalanced classes.
Exactly.
Because you end up losing some of those guys, and then you kind of fall off. And it's not an ideal situation. Now, updating recruiting real quick, obviously, just to give people an idea of kind of what's going on. Notre Dame is not stopping recruiting receivers for the 2022 class.
Good.
They are trying to find guys out there. Now, I think they made a mistake by not going after Xavier Bradshaw.
He committed to Virginia Tech.
He signed with Virginia Tech.
Excuse me. Yes.
So it's even worse. And so that to me was a mistake. I think one thing Notre Dame could do and should do is strongly consider moving JoJo Johnson to receiver just to fill some needs. Since you already have him on campus. There's a couple other type of players you can look at. They are looking at a kid named Stephon Johnson from Texas, who is committed to Oregon. He's a high academic kid. We talked about him last night on the message board. He's a guy that I like a lot. I've been told
that sign, obviously.
He did not sign. I've been told that they're looking at DJ Allen. He's a kid from Texas. That is honestly, here's what bothers me. Some of the guys they're looking at are better than Amorian Walker. And it's maddening. Like, why weren't you looking at these guys
3 months ago?
They had such a misevaluation as Amorian Walker. Notre Dame's the only staff that was even looking at him really as a receiver. Michigan and Alabama were both looking at him as a defensive back. So that was one that just, to me, just blew my mind. And why you didn't, we're going to rehash this a little bit more, but why you didn't have an idea of where he was going to be to begin with. It was a total miss. But there are some receivers out there that are uncommitted. And as we said before, you don't necessarily have to go out and get another CJ Williams for this thing to jump up to A-A. You just need to get good football players.
Right. Guys that can play. I mean,
right.
you want guys that can play. You don't just want to go out and get a couple 3-star guys or whatever. And
that are just numbers. Now they can be 3-stars, but they got to be guys that can play.
Yeah, I knew as soon as I said 3-star, you were going to push back, and you should, because that's not what I meant. But yes, I'm absolutely.
You just don't want a guy that's just a depth guy. If you're going to do that, just move JoJo over there, and at least give JoJo a chance to, go prove something. But yeah, I there's some guys on the board that if they get them, I'm like, I would grade this guy higher than a Amorian Walker. And so that's an interesting thing for me. But there's some guys left out there now. Look, they're going to have to move quickly because these other schools are going to move quickly, and a lot of these schools are going to try to say, hey, let's get these guys in the class before the big programs can meet their needs. That's going to be an important part of this too. So there's.